Donna Dube. I love talking about CEOs and trying to help them, of small businesses. That's exactly what Donna does. She's got these great tools that she's created. One called the Power Hour, the CEO Power Hour, where the CEO should take at least an hour a week to do certain things every week at the same time. She talks about time blocking. I'm sure you've heard about time blocking. She has something called the Schedule Ninja, where certain things need to be blocked by the CEOs. When I talk to CEOs a lot in the tech field and small to medium businesses, delegation is a huge issue. They're ordering the pizza themselves, the CEO, instead of delegating. We talk about that. She's just so knowledgeable and has so many tools. She's got a podcast as well that she just talks straight up about a particular subject, all helping CEOs. A lot of great quotes. One from Warren Buffett: if you can't read the scoreboard, you don't know the score. If you don't know the score, you can't tell the winners from losers. Great quote. But just a lot of great tips and tools for CEOs to help them prioritize and to, strengthen their skills. A lot of times CEOs just want to focus on whatever they're doing, whatever their services, technology, whatever they're delivering, where they have to be more rounded and they have to be able to do other things or at least delegate those off. Really great conversation. Talk with Donna. Really enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz. People ask me, how did I lose 130 pounds? The quick answer is always discipline. I started my business, wasn't paying attention to my health, was eating too much, drinking too much sweets. My daughter was born. Next thing I know, I'm pre-diabetic, I have hypertension. I knew something had to change. Discipline. I, like many of you, have faced many challenges in your career, in your family, in your life, in your faith. How did you attack them? How did you approach them? How did you solve them, hopefully? It all had to have some degree of discipline. I'm also asked, how did you found and start a tech business that lasted over 25 years? Discipline. I was committed to it, enjoyed technology, didn't enjoy some aspects of it, but knew it was necessary. Discipline. Our podcast mission: how do we use discipline to better ourselves and society? Join me, please, as I talk to interesting people and discuss how they use discipline in their family and their passion and their careers and how it helped them. Our podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. It'll be light and serious. Join us, please. Thank you for consideration. Dan, thank
some
you.
Some people
Donna
ask
Dube.
And some people don't, right?
Right. So. I say. Donna Dube.
Dube, yes.
It's a pleasure to talk with you. I'm very excited to talk to you. Why is time blocking, or what you call, scheduling ninja, so important to CEOs?
Right. So, what ends up happening? We start our business, we're a one-man show. We're doing everything, right? It's not chief executive officer, it's chief everything officer. But as we grow, we need to start letting go of some of those things and taking them off our plate and delegating them to others, automating things, etc. And as we do that, our job description as CEO needs to change, because we are now getting out of those maintenance tasks and needing more time for growth. And so having a calendar that is pre-programmed and set up for you to have time during your week to do those growth level tasks, those tasks that are moving your business forward, and tasks that only you as CEO can do.
I work a lot. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's really about being proactive rather than reactive. So for many of us, we may, turn on the computer Monday morning and we get in our email and there's, 50 emails. This one wants that, and our Slack's dinging and we got somebody else on our DMs. And if we react to all of those things, next thing you know, it's 2-3 o'clock and we haven't accomplished a thing that's that higher level CEO work. And so this calendar is really to help us focus and help us prioritize. Yeah, we need to get in our inbox, and yes, we need to deal with our team. I'm not saying ignore those things, but really to be able to hone in on what are my biggest priorities as a CEO and put those front and center.
So as far as the actual calendar that people use for their appointments and everything, are you saying get a different one or lay out on top of that?
Right. I'm staying layout on top of that. So, what I suggest you do is get a blank calendar to start with and map out first what things are important for you in terms of your family and your life. So, if you
Mm,
have a morning routine, whether that's your exercise or just some quiet time or time with the kids or whatever that looks like for you,
mm,
if
mm,
you have, a special date night once a week, or you pick up the kids from school, or you have a certain thing, your mastermind, block those times off in your
mm,
calendar first. And then, second to that, block off the times when your business is going to be open, meaning when you're going to be working, because it doesn't have to be 9 to 5,
mm,
right? You are the CEO, you're in control. Maybe that's not the best hours for you. So,
mm,
block off the time when your business is going to be open, when your team and your clients can find you. And then within that, blocking off certain times for certain activities. So you're going to have certain times when you're doing client work, client calls. You're going to have other times when you're going to be working on marketing, working on sales, right? And so you have some of those times blocked off. You know exactly what you're doing each day rather than saying, here's my calendar, book whenever you want to.
mm. You gave this great analogy where I think the CEO, I forget where, but they said that their balls that they're rotating 5 balls and work is rubber. Can you expand
Yeah,
on that?
yeah. So that actually came from a previous Coca Cola CEO.
Coca-Cola.
And he was giving a talk. Brian Dyson is his name. And he said, imagine our life is 5 balls. So we've got faith, we've got family, we've got work, we've got health, and we've got friends. The only ball out of those 5 that's made of rubber is work.
Mm,
When you drop it, it'll bounce back. The other 4 balls are made of glass. And when
mm,
you drop those, they can shatter. And we all either have been in a situation or we know someone who is in a situation who own their own business and burned the thing to the ground. Either themselves, their own health, their business,
mm.
their family, their relationships, but things went wrong because they weren't taking care of those other balls. So it's really important that we're building those things into our week, right? It's really important that you have time to meet for friends for lunch, if that's something you do every Wednesday, right? You don't have to give that up because you now own your own business.
And so do you advocate, Tuesday, dedicate a day of the week for marketing, for sales, to actually do it that way?
I think it depends on you and what your business is like.
Mm,
So you may not be able to dedicate a whole day to marketing. You may only do the morning and the afternoon, you're doing client calls or something different. So it really depends on your business. But yes, 2 or 3 hour block where you're saying, okay, this is my marketing. I'm getting in the zone. I'm really focusing. I'm not listening to my DMs, not listening to my messages. I've got my email closed and it's my time to really get some high priority work done. Because when we focus and when we really put our heads down and do that thing, we all know it takes us a lot less time when we're
mm.
actually focused.
You mentioned one thing earlier about delegation. I work with a lot of, and I'm in the tech field, and my goodness, Donna. I mean, some of these CEOs will order the pizza themselves. They just
Yes.
can't delegate. How
Yes.
how so there's the 80-20 rule, right? If somebody can do it as 80% as good as you can, then let them do it. But how do you shake
Mm-hmm.
them from that?
Yes. Yes. So it's really about looking at all the things that have to be done in your week and saying, what things do I, as CEO, have to do? And what things can others do?
Mm,
And if you're building out time in your week for those things that you have to do, you're going to force those other things onto someone else because you're not
mm,
going to have enough time to do it all, right? But it certainly is a mindset shift, Joe. Like, I mean, they have to be able to say, I can do this, but Sally Sue is the right person for this. I brought her into my business. She's got the right skills. I have to let go and let her run with this, right? And when they're able to do that, we see much less of a turnover because the people that we've
mm,
brought on are now able to grow and flourish in the job
mm.
that we hired them for, right? Instead of micromanaging and being on top of them all the time, we're taking a step back and letting them fly. And when they do, they're happy, they're succeeding, and they want to stay with us longer.
Yeah, when you empower them like that, it gives them satisfaction as well. It lets them know that you trust them and moves it forward. I think that's a really good piece of advice as well.
Mm-hmm.
Trust.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, it takes time, right? When you hire someone, it's not automatic that you trust them from day one, but you have to
Mm,
work on that relationship. And, you both know what the expectations are and you know what success looks like. And so when
mm,
that's clear to both you and the employee or contractor that you've brought on, it's much clearer that we know we're moving in the right direction. And if they're falling short in certain spots, it's clear now you can have that conversation.
mm,
Okay, we need to look at this a little bit deeper. I'm expecting A, B, and C. The level you're doing is over here, right? We need to fill that gap. But being able to have those clear expectations right from the get go certainly makes it easier as you move forward.
mm. What's the CEO Power Hour, Donna?
Yeah. So CEO Power Hour is a term I use for CEO date. So it's really 1 hour in your calendar every week, recurring at the same time. So that can be a Monday morning if that works for you. It can be a Sunday afternoon, whatever works for you. But
Mm,
a recurring time when you're really spending that hour reflecting and reviewing and looking at what your top 3 priorities are for the week. So reviewing, we're going to do a little review of metrics, not going deep dive into, all of them, but certainly lagging and leading metrics we want to be keeping track of. And the reason to do this weekly is that helps us see when something is starting to go off track.
mm,
If you imagine kids playing in the snow and they make a little snowball and they keep rolling and rolling, rolling, before we know it, it's big. And we want to catch any of those things when they're small snowballs before they get big. So by reviewing weekly, we can see that. What was my revenue goal for the month, as an example? And where am I right now compared to what my goal is? And if I'm a little bit short, what can I do? Can I reach out to someone? Can I do a flash sale? What sort of things can I do to get back on track? If we're exceeding our goal, great, let's celebrate. Congratulate the team, let everybody know we're doing great, whatever that is, right? So, certainly, revenue is one to keep track of. The other one is how people are getting into your world.
mm.
So, we all need leads coming into our pipeline to then, get sales on the other end, right? So, we want to be sure that we're keeping track of how many people are coming into our world, people that didn't know us before that we're now attracting to our business. And so whether that's through an email list that you have, whether that's people booking a discovery call or whatever that looks like for your business, but making sure that you're getting enough people in the door each and every month so that sales is not a problem down the road. So things like that in terms of metrics, we're going to review on a power hour. And then from there, we're going to look at, okay, what were my goals? And what I like to do is start with my 12-month goals, break it down into 90-day goals, and then from there, monthly goals. So if you had done it that way, then we would look at what are my monthly goals and what can I do this week to get me closer to that. Each of these steps is going to be a small step towards a bigger goal, right? So it's going
Mm,
to be something
mm,
you can accomplish in a couple of hours. So it's not going to be writing my book. That's not a
mm,
monthly and weekly goal, right? That's a big goal. But it might be write an outline for, my first chapter or my first 3 chapters or something like that. And so it's really a smaller piece, but each of those smaller steps get us closer to the goal at the end. And so writing down what our goals are and then picking 3 that are going to be our top priorities. You can do more, certainly, if you have time, but having those 3 really keeps you grounded and focused for the week ahead. No matter what happens this week, I need to get these 3 things done.
mm.
And those 3 things are not ordering pizza. They're not playing with your email marketing or your Canva. Those are what I call growth level tasks, tasks that you as CEO need to do. So things like partnerships, networking, setting up sales calls, if you're still doing that in your business, webinars, challenges, making new content, things that you have to do is those growth level tasks. And so having 3 of those priorities for the week really sets you up for success. And then looking at your weekly schedule and saying, where do I need some support or some help this week? Maybe you're traveling halfway through the week, and so you need your team to pick up something later in the week that they wouldn't normally do. Or you need some help at home because you're busier with work this week. Whatever that looks like for you, but actually taking the time to say, what do I need this week? Some self care and some support, and making sure that happens. So that may be communicating with your team. That may be communicating with your family to let them know this is the situation for me this week and I'd like some help here. Right? And then from there, just making sure that those top 3 priorities are on your calendar and blocked off. So you have time to do them during the week. And if there's things you identified for your team that weren't already in like a project management tool, make sure you're communicating that with them as well. Because we obviously want everyone on the team rowing in the same direction as we are, right? And they can't know that unless we take the time to let them know.
Now you created this power hour, and that's very intense. It's very intentional, Donna. That's that's so you help people kind of create that agenda and when to do it and walk them through it. I mean, that's very intentional. I can only see benefit happening there.
Yes, yes. It really helps, especially with those who I will call a creative visionary CEO. So, one that has a lot of brilliant ideas. The ideas come quickly, and they sometimes want those ideas implemented as quickly as they came, right? And so, sometimes what ends up happening is they're jumping from one thing to another faster than their team or even themselves can keep up with. And so this process really helps them to stay focused on where is my business headed in the next 12 months, and therefore in the next 90 days, and therefore in this month, where am I headed? And to keep doing the tasks that stay in alignment with where you're going. And that's not to say that the other ideas aren't good ones. Lots of them probably are. But if they don't fit where we're headed right now, I like to put them in what I call the idea parking lot. And so it's a spot you can either be a Google Doc or in your project management tool, but someplace where you and your team can find it. And that's for ideas that are good right now, but they aren't in alignment with my vision at the moment.
Because you don't want those going to waste.
You don't want them going to waste. No. And it's very likely that you're going to come back and look at those, right? And so have a set time, again, because I like to look at 90 days. Every time I'm setting up my next 90-day goals, I'm going to go back to that idea parking lot and see what's there. Oh, that one. That's a good one. It's going to fit with this. And so you bring that forward. That's part of your next 90-day goal.
Are you a fan of mind mapping, Donna?
I am. Yes. Yes, 100%. And there's so many free tools out there you can use now, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, very helpful.
I tend to over mind map. I tend to
Do you?
mind map. Yeah, I tend to mind map things that probably don't need it, but I just kind of want to. I'm so used to seeing the start of an idea there, and then kind of the bubbles coming from it.
The branches, yes, and it is very helpful to see it visually, right?
Yeah,
I think
I
that's
don't
the biggest
find.
advantage.
I agree. As we're talking, I'm writing. If I don't see it, I have to see myself write it, and then I have to look at it actually to sink in sometimes. And that's a really good idea with the idea board. I remember we had a email set up, as ideas at our company, and then it would go into this document that we would just look at quarterly, monthly, that people just had ideas of. So if you think of something quick, and you could just kind of email it there. You also talk about a strategic to-do list. I mean, I have to-do lists and to-do lists and to-do lists. So you could talk about having a strategic one.
Yes. So this is where, if you're not sure what goes on it, first take a brain dump. So all the things that you can think of that should be on your to-do list, take time, write them down. We're not looking for them to be pretty, no editing, just get them out on the paper or document, whatever you're using. And then from there, we want to use the Eisenhower matrix to map out which of those tasks should go in which quadrant. So the Eisenhower matrix is a square with 4 quadrants. And in those quadrants, we're going to have 2 criteria. Important, meaning that the thing is revenue generating. So you have a direct tie to making money in your business. And the other criteria is urgent, meaning that whatever this thing is has a deadline, within the next few days or weeks. And if we miss that deadline, there could be negative consequences. So, as an example of that, you would think about paying your taxes. Not something we all enjoy doing, but something we have to do. And certainly there's a deadline coming up if we're in that time of the year, right? So those are the two criteria. So we're going to have important and urgent. We're going to have important and not urgent. We're going to have not important and urgent, and then not important and not urgent. So really a positive and negative of each one of those in the quadrant. And then you're going to take each task that you wrote down and decide which of those 4 boxes it goes in. The reason why this is strategic is because many of us, if we take our to-do list, we may say, well, today I'm going to start at the top and just hammer them out until we'll see how many I get done, right? Or the other way, I'm going to pick the things that I feel like doing and that I enjoy doing, right? And so in this frame, we want to make it strategic. So if it's important, if it's revenue generating, it's got to be on there and it's got to be something you're looking at doing. And if it doesn't have a deadline coming up real soon, then maybe that's not the focus priority that you want to look at. So when you put the tasks in those 4 quadrants, then you're going to say, okay, but now what do I choose? Well, the things that are important and not urgent are the things that you're going to focus on as CEO. Those revenue generating tasks that help move your business forward. The things in the other quadrants we're going to look at, is there someone on my team that I can delegate that to? Because there's always room to delegate that we probably haven't thought about, right? Is there a way that we can automate part of this process at least, still make it feel like there's a human touch, but we don't have to have our hands in it quite as often? And then the third piece is, do I have to keep doing this? Right? Because so many times we start doing something and then we continue it, but it's not really giving us any return on investment. So I'll just pick on social media as an example. Yes, we all need a social presence, indeed, but there's constantly new tactics and new ways that we can show up on social media. Do we need to be on all the channels doing all the things? I doubt it in most cases. And so I really want CEOs to look at what they're doing and analyze, is this really helping me for the time that I have and the time that I'm putting into the business? And if it's not, pause it or let it go.
Do your practices and these great tools, Donna, do they differ by CEO depending on their size and their vertical and their space?
A little bit, but many of these things, if you look at them, they're habits. And so they can be incorporated whether you're online or whether you have a brick and mortar, whether you have 2 employees or 25. And so generally I would say no. Obviously, when you get to big business, you're going to have other VPs and other leadership team that you're going to be interacting with, right? So that would be a different case. But certainly for small to medium-sized business, these can work.
If you can't read the scoreboard, you don't know the score. If you don't know the score, you can't tell the winners from losers. Warren Buffett, you had this on your Instagram.
Yes. One of my favorite quotes from him. And I like to turn it into business for looking at data and metrics. Because so many of us hide from looking at those numbers. We don't enjoy looking at those numbers. But I want to encourage people that the numbers are strictly giving us information. And when we know those numbers, we can make informed decisions. Right? So I'll give an example. I was working with a client, working through this CEO process with them, and they were feeling stressed on their social media. They already had a social media assistant. They were considering hiring another one, but budget was a bit of an issue and they weren't sure. So I asked them, which channels do we know that people are coming from and learning, about your business from? We didn't know. Okay, so let's start there. Let's dig into the back of Google Analytics and find, which channels are people actually finding us on. And so we found interesting data, and that was that while we were posting frequently on Instagram, people were seeing us but not necessarily converting. When we did those similar posts on Facebook, we were getting almost as much traffic, but people were actually converting, meaning they were signing up for our webinars. They were, signing up for our lead magnets, whatever that first step we wanted them to take. And so while Instagram was good for social presence, it wasn't helping with our conversions. The other channels, we were hardly getting any traffic to. And so one really has to look at it and say, do we really need to hire another social media assistant when we can double down on what's working? Facebook was working. We were getting traffic and they were converting. So let's double down on what works and let go of what doesn't. Because we have to remember, Joe, what might work for your business will be different from mine. We have different
Right.
avatars, different targets, right? And so we have to actually look at our numbers and say, what's best for our business, and therefore make those informed decisions from there.
Then I've seen a shift in the last couple of years to put a strong focus on customer success. So
Mm.
once they're onboarded and they're there, how do we, maintain them, with the incentive of, getting recommendations, getting, great referrals, and of course, no churn.
Mm.
Um, what do you like this shift? Have you seen it before?
Yeah, I think it is a good shift because we all know that getting the customers that have already paid us to continue with us or pay again is much easier than finding new customers. I
Mm,
think the stat might be 7 times easier, right?
wow.
So definitely that's worth the effort. I think how we do it really matters. And so I think where my issue with it is at the beginning, I see a lot of people, sending gifts, doing this, doing that, sort of in that onboarding, that first phase. But customer experience lasts all the way through,
Right.
right? Even after they're offboarded, staying in touch and what else are you doing? So I think it's a huge area and one that we as CEOs probably don't spend enough time on in terms of do we have a system set up for customer experience right from the beginning, right till the end? Because it's really more than just, sending a gift.
Yeah, certainly is. And I mean, how valuable to everybody. I mean, like I said, getting referrals, getting testimonials, no churn. That's really, really successful. Obviously, if you can keep those clients and keep those three metrics up, it's well
Mm.
worth the effort.
Yes, most definitely. Yeah. And I think it's the easiest way to get information on what your people need, right?
Right.
Because they're already there. You're already giving them some value. Now, where else can you go? Where else can you take them on their journey to help them to the next level, right? Whereas when you're starting with someone that you don't know yet, it's really about the market research and, okay, what are they telling me they want to hear,
Mm,
right? But when you have a paid customer, it's much easier to find out, okay, what next do they need? Where are they and where do they want to go? And can I help fill that gap?
hmm. I owe my success to having listened respectfully to the very best advice and then going away and doing the exact opposite. GK Charleston. This is on your
Yeah,
Instagram.
another one of my quotes has. And I think you know where this comes from, Joe. It's really about the noise in the online space because
Mm,
it's noisy,
it
right?
is.
I mean, just few months ago, oh, there's this new social media channel. Everybody's got to get on it. Oh,
Yes.
there's this. Oh, there's that. It's just noisy. And every person you speak to has got 3 things you should be doing,
Mm,
right? You should do this.
mm,
You should do that. You should do this. And for me personally, I just found when I was building my business, it was difficult to know where do I go? Who do I listen to? Because it's all over the map. This one says I need an email list. This one says you don't even need a website. This one says, right?
mm,
And
mm,
so just knowing where to go. And again, what grounded me was looking at the metrics. What am I aligned with in terms of me and
mm,
my
mm,
personality, right? What do I like to do? How do I like to present to people? And then what do my metrics show? And if my metrics and I don't enjoy, let's say, for example, I don't enjoy teaching. I do, but there are some who don't, right? If you don't enjoy teaching, but you're setting up a live webinar, every 2 or 3 weeks to get new people into your world, and they're not converting to what you're trying to sell, there's a misalignment there, right? There's a
Mm,
mismatch. So that webinar might be working for your best business bestie, but it's not working for you.
mm,
So take a step back and say, what do I enjoy doing? Maybe it's inspiring, maybe it's motivating people. And how can I do that? So I show up authentically, right? My people can read me. I'm being honest with myself, giving them value. And that's when we then see the sales afterwards.
mm. A confused mind takes no action.
Hmm.
Another one of
Yes.
your
And
quotes.
again, that comes a big part down into the CEO Power Hour, right? Taking those big goals, breaking them down into smaller ones. And then what do I need to do this week to align with my goals to get me one step closer? I believe that peak performance athlete, I am not, but
Nor am I.
we can act in our peak performance and getting 1% better today than we were yesterday. It's a journey.
You talk also about a lot about operational expert. You kind of have your five, things that if you need one. Talk to me
Yeah.
about operations, just actually running the business. Because a lot of times the CEOs tend to do that as well, where they could be delegated.
Yes, 100%. So I'm an operations person through and through. Marketing is something I need to do, but not my favorite. But
Mm,
project planning, hiring, team management, looking at data, metrics, finances, that's the area that I really enjoy. And I think as CEOs, we need to have those things happen in our business, because what ends up happening is we're focused on marketing when we start. Get the new people in, get the new people in, right? Get leads, get sales. And our business starts to grow. And then we're going to hit a plateau where we can't grow anymore because the back end of our business, the operations side, hasn't caught up with us.
mm,
So we don't have systems and processes in place. We may not have any team in place to be able to take increased volume. So we want to bring on more clients, but we can't manage them the way our business currently runs. So, just as a simple example, if you think of someone who's working with clients one on one, and then they want to switch to doing a group program because they're getting booked out on their one on one, right?
mm.
They need to have some systems and processes in place to make that happen. It's not going to just be a turn of the switch and it goes. And so having that operations side in your business is really important. And I think lots of times as CEOs, we focus on marketing and kind of forget about our operations on the back end, because for most people, it's not the sexy side of business, right?
Mm,
But one that's necessary. And so I think depending on the level of business that you're at, depending on your revenue and your growth, it may be time to bring in an operations person, whether that's a
mm.
manager or director of operations, to help you sort of lead that and manage the team that you have, as well as doing some hiring if that's on your plate. Um, but yeah, not to be forgotten, this operations side.
Yeah, like I said, I work with a lot of. I started my tech firm in the '90s, and I work with a lot. And most of the tech firms start with a really great engineer who's good at
Mm-hmm.
working, and then they're thrust into the CEO role where they've got to do operations and marketing and sales, and they're just not able to. They want to work on the technology they like, or whatever the field may be that
Yeah.
business is promoting. And so they end up kind of being dragged in those areas when they should really look to delegate and stress the importance and get somebody on it who knows what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, 100%. And I know sometimes, the excuse is, well, no one can do it as good as
Right.
me, right? And yes, I'm calling it out as an excuse because I think it is.
Yeah,
And so,
it is.
yes, you might be great at doing it, but what about the other things that you need to do that you're not doing because you've said yes to this other thing,
Mm.
right? And so I remember one time I was working with a client and I actually had to put it in black and white, dollars and
Oh
cents in
boy.
front of her. So she was very creative. She liked spending time in Canva and Adobe and those kinds of things. But that wasn't the best use of her time. And if we look at her hourly rate and say, okay, that time you spend in Canva costs you this amount. If you had got your virtual assistant on your team to do that, look at the cost savings, right? And so sometimes just seeing it visually
Hmm.
can really help us realize, yeah, that's true. I don't really need to do this. I can pass this on.
So as I mentioned, Don, I started my business in '93, and I was juggling those five balls.
Yeah.
The one is my health, and I was not paying attention to it, and I was not working out anymore. I was eating too much late night pizza and drinking soda. I got myself up to 340 pounds. I had to check up the doctor, and my daughter was just born. The doctor said, if you don't lose this weight, you're never going to see her graduate school. So, I took the
Mm,
next 6, 7 months to lose about 130 pounds. And people always ask me how, and I just say discipline. That's how I did it.
yes.
So, how does discipline play a role in your life,
Yeah.
Donna Dube?
100%. It's so, I think what happens with us with discipline is that we sometimes need those wake up calls, like
Mm,
you unfortunately had,
right.
to really make us change because we as humans we want to do better, we want to improve, whether it's our health or our sleep or our habits, whatever it is, we want to improve, but actually putting that effort in and day out, it's so easy to fall off the track,
Mm,
right? So I think really having a wake up call makes a difference for us. The other thing I found is really helpful for me is just having some accountability. So if it's that, you know what, I want to improve my exercise routine, whether I meet with a friend and we go to the gym or we go for a walk or I'm just like having accountability at home. Okay, it's time. You go now. We'll take care of this. Just having that space to be able to ensure I get it done regularly. So
mm,
whether it's a friend, someone at home, business colleague, doesn't matter, but just having that accountability really helps to keep us on track for me, anyways. And then I think the third piece to that is giving ourselves grace,
mm,
right? Because there are going to be days when we don't meet our goals and we don't do what we should have done, right? Um, Beating ourselves up about it is not helpful. Recognizing, okay, I fell off the track today. I didn't do XYZ. Tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to do, right, whatever it is, and have a positive mindset about it that tomorrow I can do better than I did today.
mm. The accountability is a tough one, especially for CEOs, because they don't answer to anyone.
Mm,
And I remember that what made the big shift for me were peer groups. I
mm-hmm.
joined some peer groups, and all of a sudden, I'm not on this island anymore. Here's these other CEOs that have the same problems or similar problems. They understand what it's like to have the pressure of payroll and vendors and banks and government taxes and rent, etc.
Mm-hmm.
And they're good at delegation and not at marketing, or some vice versa. And that accountability, as you said, when it pertains to discipline, is really, really important for CEOs and for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There are some things where, like when I lost the weight, I didn't tell anybody, Donna. I didn't want any. I said, look, I put myself here. I'm going to get myself out. But that's
Mm,
just an extreme example. Like you called it a wake up moment, come to Jesus moment, whatever you want to call it. This kind of
yeah.
shock. I'm not just living for myself anymore. All of a sudden, I got this little girl who I
Yes.
helped bring to this earth, and so it's bigger than me. But a lot of times, CEOs need accountability.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And like you said, to know that there's others who are going through some of the same
Mm,
struggles, right?
mm,
It's not that
helps.
misery loves company, but it's a little bit of that, isn't it? So
Mm,
you need a place where you can go and vent and say, I'm really frustrated, I'm having troubles in this area with other people who understand and may have gone through a similar scenario, right?
mm.
Nothing against our family and our spouses, but if they're not business owners and CEOs, they don't understand the same.
Yeah, very true. When you're working with CEOs, Donna, do you find that discipline is sometimes lacking, or it needs to be incentivized? It's something that's there because, I mean, to be a CEO, you or an entrepreneur, you've taken on a lot of risk. You decide to start a business. I mean, the odds are completely against you. I mean,
Yes.
what is the one author who calls it a brain damage? I think it's
Right. Yes.
Covey. I forget which one now.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you find that discipline needs to be instilled, or it's already there?
Yes. I think that they have a lot of drive and a lot of ambition. So that's what helps, to get up every morning and keep going, right? So that drive to succeed and be known in the world is there for sure. I think where the trouble comes is, what do I focus on? Right? Because I've got all these things, like you said, I've got payroll, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. What do I really need to focus on? That's where I find a lot of them struggle with. And so I have a group program that helps with that, but we meet regularly during the week. So we'll have 2 Zoom calls a week, and then the third one is just a touch base on Slack. But you're not going a week without touching base, with me and with others in the group, right? So that it's harder to get off track because you're constantly there and have that helping you with the discipline. But certainly the drive is there, no doubt.
Really?
It'd have to be, otherwise,
Yeah.
like you say, crazy to start, right?
What is it? 50% fail in the first 6 months, and then
right.
50% fail within 5 years after. I mean, it is crazy, and I started at a time where I just came out of school, Donna. So I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have kids. I didn't have so I was able to take a little bit more of a risk. Some of these people start later when people always ask me, I always say, how long can you go without a salary?
Yeah. Yeah.
It better be a long time.
Right.
It better be a long time, because it's really, really, and another misconception, and I'm not trying to scare people here, but I remember a couple months in, my friends said, hey, it must be nice to they don't have a boss anymore. I said, look, I got more bosses.
Oh, very true. Yes, 100%. And I think, a lot of people